What if the very thing that makes an avoidant pull back is also the same thing that makes them think about you when you are not there? Most people try harder, they show more, text more, explain more, feel more, faster, and that is usually where the spell breaks. Because what pulls an avoidant in is rarely raw intensity. It is the feeling that you are not trying to trap a moment before it is ready. It is the feeling that your presence has weight but no pressure, that you can care without collapsing, that you can be close without reaching. Stay with me because this changes the whole game. If you are always trying to be chosen, you start leaking urgency. But when you create a space where choice can breathe, something else happens. Attention stays, curiosity grows, the mind begins to return to you, not because you chased it there, but because something about you feels unfinished in the most powerful way, and unfinished things are hard to forget. So while most people think attraction is about sparks, this deeper kind of pull often comes from steadiness, restraint, timing, and the quiet power of not forcing what is not ready. That is where fascination starts. Not in loud desire, in controlled energy, in emotional poise, in the rare feeling that being near you does not cost someone their freedom, and once that feeling is there, the bond can grow in ways that are slower, quieter, and far harder to shake. One of the strongest signals you can give is emotional self-containment. That means you do not rush to be soothed every time the energy shifts. You do not panic when a reply is slower. You do not instantly need reassurance to feel okay. You stay steady inside your own body and mind. That kind of stability changes everything in a connection where avoidance is present. It does not feel cold, it feels deep, because there is no emotional overflow demanding instant interpretation. Most people reveal too much too fast, and then wonder why the other person backs away. But when your feelings are real and still well held, your presence becomes harder to map. Not confusing in a messy way, just layered, and the mind is naturally drawn to what it cannot fully finish reading. For someone who leans avoidant, closeness can sometimes feel like pressure before it feels like comfort. It can feel like a request they did not agree to yet. But when they meet someone who is not trying to pull validation out of every moment, their system does not have to move into defense so quickly. Instead of withdrawing, they watch. They notice your timing, your tone, your patience, your lack of emotional chaos, and those subtle cues become more powerful than dramatic words ever could. This is the part most people miss. If your inner balance does not depend on immediate response, your energy feels spacious, and space invites attention. It feels safer to move toward. Over time, that steady self-possession leaves an imprint, not because you pushed yourself into their mind, but because your calm gave them room to keep returning to it. Then there is calm detachment, which is not the same as pretending not to care. It means you are present, but you do not get tangled in every rise and drop of emotion. You do not turn every shift into a crisis. You do not make every moment carry the weight of a final answer. And that creates a very specific kind of tension, not the heavy kind, the intriguing kind. Direct attraction is easy to read. If someone comes on too strong, the message is clear. The emotional direction is obvious. The mind does not need to explore. It already knows what is happening. But calm detachment interrupts that certainty without becoming cold or absent. You do not disappear. You do not chase. You simply remain grounded. That grounded state makes the observing mind more active because there is no predictable script to follow. For avoidant people, strong emotional intensity can feel like loss of space. It can feel like they are being moved too fast towards something they have not chosen. Calm detachment avoids that trigger. It says, I am here, but I am not here to force a result. And that is powerful, because attention is no longer driven by pressure, it is driven by wonder. The attraction moves away from performance and into perception. They stop asking, what do you want from me right now? And start asking, who are you really under all this steadiness? That question lingers, and the more it lingers, the stronger the pull becomes. Watch this closely, because this is where quiet people often become unforgettable. Not because they did the most, but because they stayed emotionally clean in a space where most people become reactive. Another deep trigger is unreadable emotional depth. This means you show enough feeling to be real, but not so much that every part of you becomes instantly easy to decode. You are warm, but not transparent in a rushed way. You are expressive, but not spilling your whole inner world at once. That partial visibility creates a powerful effect. The mind cannot fully settle. It senses depth, but it cannot finish the picture in one meeting, one call, one week. and that unfinished picture becomes mentally sticky. When someone is too easy to categorize, curiosity drops. The nervous system relaxes into certainty, and certainty often ends the chase of the mind. But when there is emotional life beneath the surface that can be felt without being fully exposed, attention stays active. For avoidant people, this works because it gives them something to move toward without making them feel swallowed by emotional demand. There is no pressure to meet you at full intensity, no need to merge instantly, but there is enough mystery that they cannot fully disengage either. That is the balance. Not hiding, not overshowing, just revealing in layers. And layers create depth. What makes this so compelling is that imagination begins to do part of the work. Instead of only reacting to what you have already shown, the mind starts building possibilities around what else might be there. That inner construction can become more powerful than direct expression because it keeps the connection alive between moments. Each interaction adds another piece, but never the whole map. And when the map stays unfinished in a calm way, the mind returns again and again, trying to understand what it still cannot fully name. Now here is the one that quietly hooks attention for longer than people expect. Controlled inconsistency. Not chaos, not mixed signals that leave someone anxious. I mean a natural variation in rhythm. Sometimes your energy is more available, sometimes it is more inward, sometimes your attention is strong and present, and other times you are simply living your life without constant reinforcement. That small shift matters. Total predictability can make the mind go to sleep. But extreme unpredictability creates alarm. Controlled inconsistency lives in the middle. It keeps the interaction alive without making it unsafe. For avoidant people, that slight variation is often read as independence rather than instability, especially when your tone stays respectful and calm. It shows that your whole world is not built around the interaction, that you have your own center, your own timing, your own movement, and that reduces pressure. When someone feels emotionally self-sustained, they do not seem like they are waiting to be completed by constant contact. That alone makes their presence more compelling. The mind begins to notice details, the change in your energy, the timing of your return, the small pauses, the subtle signals, not from fear, but from curiosity. And curiosity keeps people mentally engaged in a way constant availability often does not. This is why not everything has to be answered immediately. Not every feeling has to be explained the second it appears. A connection can breathe, it can have rhythm, and when the rhythm is alive but not unstable, it creates anticipation. The person does not know exactly what the next moment will feel like, but they trust it will not become emotional chaos. That is the sweet spot. Attention stays awake, interest stays warm, and the bond keeps building underneath the surface. Non-reactivity under emotional pressure is another rare force. This means when there is silence, distance, confusion, or even a subtle emotional test, you do not instantly chase, punish, over-explain, or shut down. You notice it, you feel it, but you do not turn it into an emergency. Most people go into one of two extremes when uncertainty shows up. They pursue hard, or they disappear hard. But there is a third response, and it is far more magnetic. Presence without escalation. You remain steady. You do not act like nothing happened, but you also do not amplify the moment with panic. For someone with avoidant patterns, this can be disarming in the best way. They may be used to distance, triggering a strong reaction in others. They may expect pressure, conflict, or emotional pursuit. So when their withdrawal is met with composure instead of urgency, the script changes. Suddenly there is room to observe instead of defend. That difference matters more than most people realize, because once the expected chase does not come, the nervous system has less reason to brace against it. And in that pause, a new perception forms. Your stability starts to register as strength, not loud strength, quiet strength, the kind that does not need to prove itself, the kind that does not crumble because the moment got uncomfortable. Over time, that calm response changes the meaning of distance itself. Distance no longer feels like a power move or a danger signal. It becomes just another moment being held without drama, and that is deeply regulating. It teaches the connection a different language, one where space does not always mean loss, one where tension does not always become conflict, one where your steadiness becomes something the other person slowly begins to trust. Stable boundaries are another psychological anchor, and this is where attraction turns into respect. When your boundaries do not bend every time emotion rises, you communicate something powerful. You show that your inner structure is not up for negotiation in the heat of a feeling. That matters more than people think. In unstable dynamics, intensity often changes the rules. Someone gets upset, and suddenly access expands. Someone pulls away, and suddenly standards drop. Someone gives mixed energy, and suddenly the whole structure bends to keep the connection alive. But when your boundaries stay calm and clear, emotional intensity loses the power to control the shape of the bond. For avoidant people, this can actually lower resistance. Why? Because a big hidden fear in closeness is the fear that attachment will demand more access, more exposure, more emotional performance than they can comfortably give. But if your limits are clear and consistent, that fear softens. There is no invisible negotiation happening under the surface. What is available is available. What is not available remains steady. That kind of predictability creates safety, not the soft safety of total emotional fusion, but the grounded safety of knowing where the edges are. And edges matter. They make connection feel less like a trap and more like a space with shape. Over time, boundaries stop being seen as walls and start being felt as anchors. They tell the nervous system that this relationship is not built on testing, stretching, or manipulating emotional access. It is built on clarity, and clarity reduces the need for defense. Once defense softens, attention becomes freer, presence becomes easier, and attraction begins to attach itself not only to warmth, but to the rare feeling of being with someone who cannot be emotionally pulled out of their own structure. Then there is intellectual resonance, which is one of the calmest and strongest forms of attraction. This is what happens when conversation feels like discovery instead of performance. When being understood does not only happen through feelings, but through ideas, patterns, insight, and the way you see the world. For avoidant people, this can be deeply compelling because it allows closeness without immediate emotional exposure. Instead of being asked to confess everything they feel, they are invited to think, reflect, question, explore. And that feels safer. It keeps autonomy intact while still creating intimacy. When a connection is built only on emotional intensity or physical charge, it can feel too fast, too consuming, too hard to regulate. But intellectual connection moves differently. It creates a bond through shared attention, through meaning, through the feeling that someone really gets how your mind works. And that kind of recognition can stay with a person for a very long time, because being understood mentally often feels less threatening than being emotionally cornered, yet it still creates depth. The conversation becomes something they look forward to, not because it gives instant relief, but because it expands them. It sharpens thought, it opens perspective, it makes them feel seen without being pushed open before they are ready. That is a rare balance. And once a connection starts to carry that kind of steady mental electricity, it becomes hard to replace. The mind begins to link you with discovery, with stimulation, with a sense of movement inside, and people return to what makes them feel more alive in that quiet, thoughtful way. Not every bond needs fireworks to become powerful. Sometimes the most unforgettable attraction is the one that enters through the mind and slowly settles much deeper. Absence of neediness may be one of the most powerful qualities of all. This does not mean you stop caring. It means your care does not come wrapped in urgency, hidden demand, or the need to be constantly reassured that you matter. You offer connection, but you do not beg for emotional confirmation every few steps. And for an avoidant person, that can completely change the emotional atmosphere. Neediness, even when subtle, can feel like pressure. It can make every interaction feel loaded, as if each silence now means something. Each delay requires repair. Each shift must be discussed immediately. But when there is no grasping in your energy, closeness feels optional instead of compulsory. That lowers resistance fast. It tells the other person, I want connection, but I do not need to control it to survive it. That message is deeply regulating. It removes the fear that every warm moment will turn into a contract. Attention can stay present longer because it does not feel captured. Interest can develop without triggering the instinct to escape, and that changes everything. The bond begins to feel like open space, not emotional debt. Presence is there, but it is not clinging. Attraction is there, but it is not demanding a certain speed of return. And that kind of emotional lightness is rare. Most people do not realize how loud hidden need can be. It leaks through timing, tone, over-explaining, checking, chasing, trying to lock in certainty too early. When that noise is gone, your energy feels different, cleaner, freer, more mature. And that freedom is attractive because it allows the other person to move toward you without feeling like their autonomy is already under pressure. Here is another layer that matters more than it seems: selective warmth. Not warmth given to everyone, all the time, in the same exact way, but warmth that feels real because it has weight. You are not emotionally frozen. You are not distant for effect. You are capable of softness, humor, tenderness, and real presence. But it comes with discernment. It comes with timing. It is offered, not spilled, and that makes it land differently. Avoidant people often pull away from intensity, but they still feel drawn to genuine emotional safety. Selective warmth creates that safety without flooding the space. It lets them feel your humanity without feeling consumed by it. And because it is not constant and automatic, it carries more meaning: a soft look, a thoughtful message, a moment of real listening, a calm touch, a line that shows you noticed something small. These things become powerful when they are not lost inside non-stop emotional output. This is where attraction becomes textured. Not just mystery, not just detachment, but warmth with shape, kindness with boundaries, openness with self-respect. It tells the other person that closeness with you is possible, but it unfolds. It is not pushed. It is not handed over all at once. And that creates emotional value, because people do not remember only how much someone gave. They remember how deeply it felt when it was real. Selective warmth also prevents a common mistake: becoming so controlled that you seem unreachable. The goal is not to become a wall. The goal is to become grounded enough that your softness has gravity, that when you do open, it means something, that when you do move closer, it feels intentional, and intention is attractive because it makes even simple moments feel chosen instead of automatic. Another hidden turn-on is a life that clearly exists beyond the connection, not as a performance, not to make anyone jealous, but as a real sign that your energy has direction, priorities, focus, and meaning outside romance. This matters because avoidant people are highly sensitive to anything that feels like emotional over-reliance. If your whole emotional center seems to depend on the relationship, they often feel the weight of that before they feel the beauty of the bond. But when your life has movement, when your time has shape, when your attention belongs to more than one thing, your presence feels lighter and stronger at the same time. You stop feeling like someone asking to be filled and start feeling like someone who invites rather than clings. That shift is huge. Purpose is attractive because it protects your energy from becoming desperate. It gives your emotions somewhere healthy to go. It gives your identity structure, and structure is calming. It says, I can care deeply and still remain myself. I can want closeness and still have a life. I can miss you and still keep moving. That energy is quietly irresistible. It turns every interaction into an addition, not a rescue mission. And when someone senses that being with you does not mean carrying your entire emotional world, they relax. They become more free to enjoy you, more free to notice you, more free to come forward because they do not feel immediately responsible for your emotional balance. Do not miss this point. People are often drawn not only to how someone feels, but to how someone holds their life. A grounded life creates grounded energy, and grounded energy is easier to trust than intensity with no center. Quiet confidence is another force that hits deeper than surface attraction. This is not arrogance. It is not trying to look above anyone. It is a settled sense of self that does not need constant proof. You are not trying to win every moment. You are not collecting reactions to feel real. You do not need to dominate the room, the chat, or the relationship. And because of that, your presence feels expensive in the best way. Calm, unforced, hard to shake. Avoidant people often notice this more than direct seduction because quiet confidence does not invade. It does not corner. It does not demand that they answer to your insecurity. It simply holds its own shape. That makes them curious because confidence without noise is rare. It allows silence without panic. It allows disagreement without collapse. It allows attraction without immediate possession, and that creates emotional oxygen inside the connection. You become someone whose value can be felt without being announced, someone who can desire without losing dignity, someone who can care without becoming chaotic. The deeper effect of quiet confidence is that it changes the emotional tone of every interaction. Even simple moments feel steadier. A delayed reply does not become a wound. A pause does not become humiliation. A shift does not become a full identity crisis. Your nervous system stays more organized, and that organization becomes part of your appeal, because at the deepest level, people are drawn to what feels emotionally survivable, and confidence makes closeness feel survivable, not because there is no risk, but because there is enough self-trust in the room that the connection does not have to be micromanaged every second. That alone makes desire feel cleaner, slower, and much harder to forget. There is also something deeply magnetic about being emotionally honest without being emotionally loud. This is the middle path most people never master. They either hide everything and become impossible to reach, or they reveal everything and lose all pacing. But the real power is in speaking the truth simply, clearly, and without turning it into emotional pressure. You can say you care without asking for a guarantee. You can say something mattered without demanding immediate repair. You can name what you want without making the other person